Syria's government is allowing the evacuation of nearly 30 critically ill people from a besieged Damascus suburb, where hundreds requiring medical treatment have been prevented from reaching hospitals minutes away. The government recently tightened its siege of eastern Gaza, home to some 400,000 people, leading to severe shortages of food, fuel and medicine as winter sets in. Inga Isedka, spokeswoman for the International Committee of the Red Cross in Damascus, said 4 patients were allowed to leave Tuesday and 25 others are expected to be let out in the coming hours. It is not clear if all will be evacuated in one batch Wednesday or over several days. The ICRC is partnering with the local Syrian Arab Red Crescent to handle the evacuations. SARC spokeswoman Mona Kurda said the evacuees arrived in hospitals in government-controlled Damascus, just a few minutes' drive away. The Army of Islam, a prominent rebel group in eastern Gaza, said the critically ill will be evacuated as part of a deal that was conditional on it releasing an equivalent number of captives. There are many more people who need to be evacuated. We hope this will be only the beginning, Sedka said. The evacuees included 3 children, as young as 1 year old, and 1 adult. The patients, who traveled with family members, needed immediate treatment for cancer, kidney failure and hemophilia. At least 5 detainees were evacuated from eastern Gaza late Tuesday. Some patients may not be able to leave eastern Gaza for government-controlled areas, because they either fear conscription into the army or detention for having lived or worked in opposition areas. For weeks, the UN has been calling on the government to allow some 500 critically ill people to leave the suburb for treatment and to expand aid groups heavily restricted access to the area. Activists in eastern Gaza have circulated photos online of severely malnourished children. The UN says 1 in 8 children in eastern Gaza is going hungry, up from 1 in 50 in May. Earlier this month, the UN said 12 people had died waiting for medical evacuation from eastern Gaza. Their names were on a UN-drawn list submitted to the government 6 months ago. Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan said his government is working with Russia, a close ally of Syrian President Bashar Assad, to try and evacuate some 500 people from eastern Gaza, including about 170 women and children, who are in urgent need of humanitarian or medical assistance. Turkey is a leading supporter of the Syrian opposition. Rights groups say the government has used siege tactics across Syria to starve local populations and force rebels to surrender, which would amount to a war crime. The government denies the allegations, blaming shortages on rebel groups. Eastern Gaza was one of the first areas to rise up against Assad when Arab Spring protests spread across the country in 2011. Government forces surrounded the area in 2013, but tunnels and smuggling allowed residents to bring in food and medical supplies. The government tightened the noose earlier this year following victories against insurgents in other parts of the country.